definition is to know who are the actors of the data collection. And first, we have to think about some definitions. The first definition is the controller. Who is the controller, in fact? The controller is the natural or legal person, the natural of or legal person, public authority, natural of legal person, public authority, agency, or other body, or other body which alone or jointly, and this the major part of the definition is now, determines the purposes and means of processing. Determines the purposes and means of processing. So it was the one for whom the files is created, the data collected, recorded, and of course treated. So it's got, of course, the main role in this equation. It's got the main role, the main function concerning the data. As an example, I took the example of the university. The university collect, treat, etc. And who is the data controller of the university is the rector, because he is the highest authority in the organism, and the public organism that is the university. And for the company, it's exactly the same. For the company, it can be for the private company, it would be the CEO will be the control, data controller of the company. You can see every time, this is the most important person who represent the legal, of course, the legal company or society or whatever, who is the data controller. What is the processor? The processor, generally speaking, as a definition, is the natural or legal person. The processor is the natural or legal person. And we can repeat the same word. Public authority, agency, and other body, and the following is the most important, which processes personal data on behalf of the controller. So the processor has no choice. If you contract, as an example, if you contract with the controller, the contract, like the terms of his own function compared to the function of the controller. I can give some examples, many examples of processor. You have first the IT service providers, of course. The IT service providers has hosting, maintenance, etc. You have always in the same example the software integrators. The IT securities companies, or the digital services company, as an example. Second example of processor, you have some other people, very different function, as the marketing or communication agencies that process personal data, of course. So marketing or communication agencies that process personal data, always on behalf of the data controller, of course. No, not for his own needs, for his own needs, and it's the same for every processor I'm talking about. For his own needs, the processor is not a processor, is his own controller. Of course, except if you use a processor itself by this way. You have two organizations, third example. Any organization offering a service or performance involving the processing of personal data. Any organization offering a service or performance involving the processing of personal data, always on the organization as a data controller, of course. In fact, it depends on this point. What are the responsibilities of each other? The responsibilities first of the data controller. They are large. Of course, they are large because of their mission. The responsibility of the controller are linked to all the nature, the scope, the context, and the purposes of controlling. So it takes several forms, in fact, depending on the treatment of the data. The responsibility of the controller is linked to the way they apply all the principles of the GDPR. As an example, are linking to all the way the principle applies to GDPR. As an example, I take the example of the purpose. If the controller has a large definition of the purpose and collect data that are not needed for the data for his mission. So in this case, the data collected is disproportionality. So what we can say is wrong because his definition of purpose is too large, and he can see his responsibility engaged because of that, of course. So we can see, as an example of the purpose, that it was very important to him, to the controller, to have a good definition of why the files, the data personal files, while the files are created. And a good definition that included all the steps of the files, of the treatment of the files. It's not the same, of course, concerning the processor. The processor, as I said, the processor he has a responsibility under the one of the controller. But quite the same, generally speaking, but quite the same for the part of his missions. As an example, I take the data centers. The responsibility of the data centers for recording and keeping recorded the data, the responsibility is quite the same for the data centers as they are the processor than the controller, whose data are treated for what? And the same, but for other missions. As an example, the treatment while the data are collected and kept and recorded. The processor has no responsibility because the processor, in the case of the data center, is just like a bank. In fact, it's just like a bank. We give back the data and no more. The question of the use of the data center is something that not depends of the data centers. It's not his problems. So if there is, as an example, an attack on data during the treatment of the use of the data, the responsibility of the data centers can't be engaged, of course. It's not his stuff. It's not his job. So the difficulty for the responsibility of the processor is to well define the framework of the processor. To well define it in order for each other, of course, in order to permit to the controller if there is a problem during the activities of the processor to find the responsibility of the processor, and another way to protect the processor to not see his own responsibility engaged for the case that not dependent on this mission. So this must be clearly defined between them, and the most thing to see is in the contracts you have to definitely you have to make the definition. One word more on this question. This is an important reason why lawyers in personal data are a lot of searching in Europe since the GDPR, because in fact all the law relations between two companies must be examined in a new point of view, depending on the application of the GDPR. So it's a big work to do, because you can imagine that this work to renew the link, the contracts between the two companies applies at all kind of types of relation to all the companies all over the European Union. It's numerous activities. It's kind of infinite work, in fact. That's why, as an example for France, the students that follow the same courses than you are very searching, And in a few years since the GDPR, the lawyers who have been formed in GDPR law, and the personal law, is the third most searched profile of lawyers. Before GDPR, it was not searched, of course, and since it is well searched, and I can say now there is some dispute to what we call officer in compliance officer or digital compliance officer, included the creation of EA, of course, that need to make some compliance to the EA system, not only the personal data system. It's a new job that is building in this time, especially to the scale of the jurists, the lawyers in digital law. And I think that this was your discourse. This LLM is very important because you will know the same thing, and you are the first for your country. So there is many works to be created with the future law, the next law about personal data. Yes.
Professor, can you, in this example, can you give the extra example regarding the third parties? We then you mentioned about the application of the data controller and data processors. They are the same knowledge of the responsibility. Can you extra this example into the third party? Then what is the obligation or responsibility of the third party?
As an example, in a maintenance contract, you are the CEO of a company who have used some logical for your work, for your activities, for your economic activities. You have a contract with a computer society that make the maintenance. If you want sure to limit the problems that can happen to the data you used, it can be the data of your salary, your worker. Already in this case, you have to write in the contract with your partners, with your processor. You have to contract to include the protection that will be created with the next law, the next component law. So,
The contract is between the
whatever, all contracts. Yeah, of course, come on search if you know what you are looking for and where.
Mình đẹp đi.
Bon, vous êtes rassurés, ça va? Ok. Okay, she's lucky. It's lucky that the classroom was busy all the time since the conference that we do in the afternoon. So it's okay. You can see that the contractual relation as a consequence of the regime of the sub-processing regime. So you need, for everything, depending on the processor, you need a sub-processing contract to have a framework where the data protection is protected between the two actors. In fact, of course, there is not sub-processing by this way without the authorization of the controller, in order that there is no escape of the